I will call this meeting to order. In regards to the agenda, I just have one thing, if it's appropriate, just at the end, maybe just a brief discussion with the resignation of our board chair. Just would like to talk about the process.
She resigned?
She did.
Oh, good.
So if we could add that maybe just under item 5.
Technically, in a special meeting, you can't really change the agenda,
Then I will take that back.
but I think maybe comments at the end, just to make
Okay.
sure that
Board
this,
member comments.
not everyone knows.
Okay, all right, thank you. Anything else on the agenda? Your motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Public comment? All right, moving on. Item 4, consideration of the Manistee DDA and City of Manistee Service Agreement.
We had met and kind of tried to update the service agreement, and that was on Friday, so I didn't get it over to the probably had until mid-afternoon on Friday. He did email back to me this weekend and said that he looked through it and there are a couple concerned areas. What I wanted to do is I provided in front of you the changes that we made as the committee, and that's the one with the blue in it. Those are our changes to the original, which is the other piece that we have. And as you will see, just quickly going through it, there was always a question about a definition of what maintenance is. We're asking for maintenance, and so what does that mean? And so we just added the definition of what maintenance is at the first part of it.
Could you explain kind of a little bit the process, because you say the original, I think it needs
The
some explanation as
document,
to
the
what
other
that
document that
is.
doesn't have, is all not marked up, is what the original that the city sent to us, and what they wanted to submit as our agreement. I don't have anything further than that, where we went back to, because we've been doing this for months. So I'm going off of what the city had proposed for us to agree to.
So we had that joint meeting with city staff, and out of that, Ed Bradford took the initiative to write this draft
Off of a draft that I wrote.
that you wrote. Okay, so I'm not even sure of all of this. And then that got submitted to city council at one of the work sessions, I believe.
Not that I know of, that he
Okay.
mentioned in his
He
email
mentioned
that
his
city
email.
council has this, but
Okay.
as far as I know, they have never seen it.
Okay.
I don't believe any of the city council
Okay.
members
Okay.
has seen any of this. So I provided the two so that you can kind of see where we're at. We're not far off. The questionable pieces that we made some changes to is just office space, which really didn't change anything. Our DDA director will have a available suitable office space, and should we need that space, that the city is going to accommodate it. It just, it's,
Can I back up to the definition of maintenance?
yes, according to Webster.
Just the last one, it says bringing something back to working order. That implies that it's broken. To me, it implies that it's broken, and that would be repaired to me.
Let's see. Taking steps to avoid something breaking down.
Which
and
is fine.
Something
Yeah,
back.
but then, when you say bringing something back to working order, to me, just it implies it's broken. And
Could be.
if it's broken, then that, to me, is more repair. Throwing it out.
This is why it's taking months.
I just wanted to further complicate it.
You can find that out with Webster.
Who am I playing with?
I think it's because if, again, out of the dictionary, you're taking steps to avoid, that's the whole statement, if it needs repair. Then if we move into repair, we're moving into those other areas. So I get what you're saying, I just,
I just don't want that to be something that trips it
we'll laugh because it will.
Well, yeah.
Infrastructure, discuss any, I'm just gonna jump to the areas where we kind of highlighted it. Discussion on all new infrastructure. This, in all honesty, became an issue because it was really a feeling like almost like we couldn't move on the infrastructure without talking to the city. Now, we want to be able to collaborate and work with the city, and we want to be able to discuss everything, but sometimes our thoughts and what we want to do, like purchasing the dry cleaners, you know, would we now have to go back to the city? That's an issue we want to do some infrastructure on. So we made that purchase. When would we have to kind of sit down with the city and start having these conversations? We can go ahead and buy, if we wanted to, that park down there that we keep talking about. But it was, in the language in here, was almost so strict that it's like, so in order to say we had the idea to buy that park, and then we're talking about maybe putting some cement down and then bringing in trucks, you know, food trucks, would we have had to go back to the city and have that deeper discussion with them? So we're trying to have a collaborative effort to kind of work on all these projects, but at the same time, don't want to have our hands tied with a bureaucratic process too. So that's why we made the changes in there. Enhanced services, here's another area that we continuously, as a group, each stumble over. We like the idea of basic, enhanced, and accelerated service. That came out of our group discussion. But then when it comes down to what does that really mean, you know, it gets difficult again to define, just like you brought up that. So we made a couple of changes to the enhanced services, asking that the cost incurred will be similar to the billed in line with charges provided to other similar services. A little bit of why that went in there is because it felt a little bit like we were going to, we were hearing or seeing that we're going to have a different charge than like in our events. If you're putting up barricades, you know, and you don't charge, I don't know, what's the chamber do down there with the wine and stuff? If you don't charge them, then if the DDA puts up an event and the barricades are put up and you get charged, that feels a little bit different. So it has to be a process across for everybody. So if it's similar to what we're doing, if we're doing an event and the chamber does an event, we have to be treated similarly. How would you say it? The budget area, as you can see, was one of the biggest areas of redo. Again, the budget area, we agree. We have not really looked at this before, but we agree that the budget has to be done in a collaborative effort, that it does have to be brought before the city council, and that we should stay within the timeframes that the city proposes for their budget process. There's a lot of discussion about that, and you know, totally understand that when the budget process comes up, that city council members have to have all the information. So staying in line with the city process is important. Meeting the deadlines as the city puts their budget together is important. The things that got a little bit more difficult was in the one that we received back, it was a little bit more like, you know, you will do this. And we put in the language that we will do it, but it's according to the city's process and the DDA charter. We always have to follow our charter as well. So we're trying to find that middle ground there. Again, we had a discussion about what the payment for enhanced services will be. What does that include? So we put in language that says, you know, that it's costs incurred that would be similar in bill to line and charges we provided for similar services again. If they're coming out and putting up barricades for a special event and we get charged, we have to go back to, all right, that has to be something that has to be similar across the board. And the payments will be made quarterly by the end of September, December, March, and June of each year, the total amount to be paid, and we left that blank. There was an amount put in there. I moved that out because we didn't have the right to put an amount in there. Since we're only a committee, the board only has the right to put the amount in. There was also a comment at the end. I'm sorry.
Understand what you're saying, I think I understand what you're saying about the amount, but was it your intent to have some kind of an amount?
Well,
Agreed
yeah,
upon?
be a recommendation,
Okay.
yeah. That'll be our recommendation. I just couldn't put it in the document without
Okay, all right.
approval.
So there will be some
Oh, yeah.
recommendation from the
Yeah.
kindergarten.
Yeah, we figured 5 cents.
The key is agreed upon.
Yes. All right, we'll let you go to 10. Yeah, no, that same amount will be suggested, but, you know, that we have to all agree upon. And then we just, at the very end, there was language about 3% increase, 0 to 3% increases. And we kind of countered with, you know, just be the rates of inflation at that time. You know, if we get no increases and we're held to, you know, an increment of maybe 2 or 3%, then we're going to have difficulties. So we wanted to stay at whatever that rate of inflation is. That is a 5,000-foot view of this document. Other committee members can go into the details if they would like. But I just wanted to provide both of these documents to you. I don't think we're that far off. I think some of the language stuff, you know, the sticklers are, and I made light of it, but, you know, what Dad said, you know, that's going to be an issue we have to talk about, is that maintenance. And this is very, very hard to define because, you know, there's a lot of things, you know, in our conversation, Jeff talked about that they just take care of. You know, they see something, they just take care of it. So they're doing maintenance, but they're also being conscientious about, you know, what their jobs are too. So it's a very hard thing to define and what exactly they're going to do or not do. And we all have different opinions. You know, I might go down on the river walk and see, you know, whatever it gets done down there and think, oh, that looks really nice. And somebody behind me might walk down there and go, oh my God, that looks terrible. So it's really personal interpretation too. So some of that's getting very hard to define. And we keep, as we drill down, we're getting further and further to those hard defining areas, which we're always going to have different opinions.
When do you plan on getting back with the city on to hash out these details?
Well, what I would like to recommend is that we move this over to our director to finalize. You know, I think we're close enough. I think that, you know, meeting with the city personnel would be important. You know, it just really gets difficult with the committee. You know, we're constantly put our schedules together and then things are happening and we're not getting it done fast enough. I'd like to recommend that we send our outlines to the city council so they can just review them, know that we're working on it, and then give Caitlin the responsibility to finalize the contract issues.
Right. The only reason I bring that up is I think Caitlin provided everybody a copy of that timeline.
Yes.
You know, we're really up against it. So, and the indications I get from city councils, they're not going to approve the development plan until the service agreement is taken care of. So we have to get it going. We have some time, but not much.
Right. And that's why I kind of keep thinking, you know, I just, and again, other committee members voice up because you know, I'm just at a point where I just think that, you know, the committee has done what it can do, but we do have to have our director kind of do our contract negotiating and finish it up. That's just.
Yeah, I know, Caitlin, aren't you gonna be on vacation rest of this week? Okay.
Wow, jeez. Okay.
Oh, we were trying to
The seventh?
Well, then the committee can meet with Ed,
Except I'm out from tomorrow through Saturday.
and I can meet with Ed.
Yeah. That's what I was suggesting. Ideally, it would be nice if you and Ed and whoever can come to some agreement, and we could bring this back on the 8th to our meeting, and hopefully get it all taken care of.
Do that if the committee is fine with that.
And just so that I'm clear, this is for the calendar year beginning in July, right?
That would, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't state that, so.
I thought it did say that.
It just says it's entered into on this date.
No, it's at the end.
It's at the very end.
Yeah, okay, and there's a comment about July, something to June or something like that.
Okay.
Okay, I don't think we need any action or motion on this.
I guess the question I have is, does everyone understand what's here? Are they comfortable with it? So I'm not hearing any feedback from the board, either one way or another. Is this, when this comes back to the board, will this be accepted or not?
I like the outline, like it's set, and then just hammering out the final details. But in terms of the format, I'm comfortable with it.
Kind of looking to you, Todd, because I know this is an area you have strong opinions on.
My opinions haven't changed, but I don't think, we're kind of over a barrel here, so I don't like it. I think that the work is great. I don't like the premise of it, but I think it's not productive in the end. But if it passes, it'll be interesting to see how it works.
I think since the last rendition, though, I like the definition of the basic services and that those are naturally provided, and that you outlined that a little bit more clearly, because I think the last time, a lot of the basic services were things that normally would happen as a taxpayer dollars, like snow removal. So I think that's a plus. I think that's a good thing that the committee's tried to make some clarification, which I think is helpful.
And I guess the other question I would have with the board is any thoughts or comfort range on that dollar amount? Because if we're saying, if we're directing Karen to negotiate this, maybe some direction as to what the board is thinking on that would be.
We have talked about $65,000, so I can negotiate up to $65,000 if you want to start there.
I am uncomfortable with that. To me, it's too high.
Up to $65,000.
Give it your best effort and bring back the results.
And the reason I say that is, if you look at this agreement, as Val was pointing out, basics, the city is basically accepting that they own and are responsible for all maintenance of all city infrastructure, which includes anything DDA builds that's of a public nature. And that's basic services, and that's not something we are contributing towards. The enhanced services is where it's essentially what we're being asked to pay for in this agreement on an annual basis, a sum of money. And those enhanced services are actually in some ways less than we are paying for today. Because
I'm looking at the list.
let's just take our landscaping contract.
Yeah.
We're paying the city to empty the garbage cans, to mow the grass, and now, and I think properly, that's acknowledged that's a basic city service. So things that go beyond that, there certainly are things in the Riverwalk that are, that we would want maintained at a level higher than other city parks, for example. but what amount is that? So, you know, it's just, but the nature of this discussion is what has been going on for a decade, is to what is city responsibility, what is the DDA's responsibility, and what is the DDA pay for on top of that.
Sure.
And, you know, this lists out, I think accurately, good boundaries of those things. It's just we're being asked to contribute, I think, a sum more than these services that we are getting per this agreement.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to look back at our current budget and how it compares. And the breakdown, so we have hanging baskets in there, well, that would be an enhancement.
Mhm.
And that last year was 13,000. Landscaping
But
is
the
included.
hanging baskets,
That's just
they're-
watering.
no, that's both watering and planting. This year, the watering was $4,000.
Oh, in addition, of course. We have to pay for the water.
So,
And then we have city maintenance and DDA, which is 22,000. And landscaping for 18,000, but
Right.
now we're saying that's part of basic, right? No.
I'm just saying that it's always been unclear what those dollar amounts were for. We had this discussion a year ago when we were arguing about whether we should pay the city invoice for city maintenance,
Right.
22,000.
2,000, right.
And this is what is cleaning that up. And I fully agree with that. It's just the categories are now different, so you can't look at.
Well, that's one
Can't
thing
take
that-
the old,
that's one thing I would suggest Karen iron out, because it sounds like some of those line items can go away and just be thrown into this.
it does,
Yeah.
but that's what you'd have to, I can make you a copy.
So I mean, if you put it in perspective, what were the numbers, 14 or 16,000?
Well, there were, landscaping was 18,000,
Yeah.
and city maintenance was 22, holiday decorations 8.5, downtown maintenance was 28.4.
Yeah, I would just, Karen, my suggestion is just clarify that with what the position is.
Yeah, that's 60-some thousand right there.
Yeah, but it, you know, I think we need to find out, from the city's perspective, do they want to see that payment continue? Or if that's gonna be all rolled into that? I don't know.
One of the things that I'm never clear about, my favorite topic, which is the downtown streetscape, which is not my favorite. So, there are several intersections and some walkways that are a mess, and loops, and stuff like that, so that comes under enhance. Would those be enhanced things that they're gonna have to?
No, that would not be enhanced. That is city infrastructure for this agreement. And it should be on some sort of standard maintenance plan that says, you know, whatever that plan is. Those plans don't exist yet because it's not been thought of that way before. Where it's enhanced is if the city were to say, yes, and we're scheduling to repair that or replace that 10 years from now, and we say, we can't wait 10 years, we want you to do it next year, that's when it becomes, well, actually, that would be accelerated, because we would then be paying that on top of our annual. So no, that wouldn't be in the enhanced category, it might be accelerated.
It's, yeah, well, yeah.
There are
As
things-
a previous business owner, when they put that in, that was one of my objections, you know, that trouble it caused. It just seems like, that was a situation where the DDA went full board. We're doing it, even though there was a lot of disagreement. So that's why we want to come back to a collaborative effort and be able to talk, because you can walk down River Street, it's beautiful, but it is going to cost us a lot. So that's a perfect example of, we're just going to do it. You know, that's why we want to come back to, let's collaborate, because it looks beautiful, but the nightmare.
And to kind of tie some of these discussions together, a lot of dollars in our proposed TIF plan are to do accelerated maintenance on those pieces, because we acknowledge that it's necessary, the city's not going to have dollars in any reasonable timeframe.
Actually, I don't think that's something we shared with the city, is that we do have plans for those projects. Actually, that's a good point, very good. All right, that's where I'm at with that. I'll meet with,
So is there any come more or arm wrestling or?
I'm sure he's gonna be thrilled to see me.
He likes you.
Oh, no, it's her.
Karen, thank you.
All right, everybody at my house is sick, I'd rather be out and about.
Moving on to item 5, consideration of the Manistee DDA Chamber Economic Development Agreement.
That was another one that we were able to wrap up quickly and send along yesterday, or Friday. And Mark did make it. Mark wrote me back and said that everything looked fairly good. There was just a couple areas. Mark, would you want to speak to those couple areas that you talked
I'd be
about?
happy to. It'd be good to have the dialogue,
Thank you.
just put them in green.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone.
Oh,
Yeah. So, let me first just say thank you to Karen and the committee for the hard work on this. I know there's been some back and forth, so I just want to say thank you. And it's been good to work in this manner with Karen, so I appreciate that. I had three main things to address. One is an absolute must change, and it's that the entity that we're entering into the agreement with really needs to be the Manistee Area Chamber of Commerce. It's a 501c6 nonprofit organization that's established, and we would like to have that change to reflect that. We have get into some further dialogue along those lines that might be helpful, but that is where we'd like to see the change for the signatories. The second item is more of a clarification, but has some pretty strong ramifications. Under the work item number 2, develop an entrepreneurial day, we need to add a clause there that said task associated with this event may, not shall, but may include, and then have the bullet point list there with the items. That way, Caitlin and I can work through what's appropriate, what we should have included, and then go from there. If there's a feasibility plan included, we probably would have a strong objection to that. We'd like to work out why, we have the scope, the justification, and the cost to understand. We're not certain what the need is at this point, but we'd be open to a dialogue with the DDA on that. So we just need to find out what that might be. And then the final third one is just a very small one. We don't even have to mention it. I just keep catching a proper noun being.
Just think they should change your name.
You think so? Amore, right? I figured that was a spell check option. So that means we're very, very close. And so those are the last things, I think. The rest of it's agreeable. And so I think we can, with a little bit more refining, we can get to a final agreement with your approval. So that's that. So.
If we made, well, number 1 is a must, we have to change that, we were doing the contract with. Number 2, that language does not seem too bad, but the specifics of this contract, we thought too, was the measurements, the outcomes, the project definement would be something that you could work with the director. And then reporting, she can do the reporting, but it's like so that she could provide, outcomes to the board so that we would know you know, where the projects are at and what's going on. So it's a little ambiguous because it's to be worked out. It's kind of like where we're going. So if that's comfortable to you.
That's comfortable. What we want to make sure is that we don't spend whatever amount is decided upon. We don't want to spend 75% of that doing recording.
Correct.
We want to be able to make things happen on the ground doing some work. So that's the one thing that I will say is that we can work that out in a reasonable manner. I think we'll be just fine. But the bottom line is we want to make sure that these funds are used for making a difference. And so that's, I'm pleased that we're going with the left to be determined in vague language so that we can have an agreement to work it through.
I just want to say, I agree, I had some, concern myself. One of them was on the entrepreneur day. I just thought, when I looked at that, I thought it just smacked of micromanaging. I think we just need to give the chamber, if we just had that first one, development, I think we're going to collaborative effort and not include all those others, then let them put it together and go with it. Our executive director can get involved in that, help out, but I think if we enter into this agreement, we're going to be entering into it and letting their area of expertise show for my comment there. Did you want any comments on the attachments? That part of it?
Oh, the attachments, we got rid of.
Yeah.
Oh, you got rid of them?
Yeah, we got rid of the attachments.
Okay,
Sorry.
that's even more better.
Did I send that to you, Mark?
Could you repeat that, please, Karen?
Did I send that attachment to you?
In an earlier draft.
Oh, okay.
In an earlier draft, and then.
It disappeared in this last
It
one.
disappeared in the last one, which I thought that it was dropped, so
Okay.
if that's the understanding, we're good with that.
Yep.
I think we're close.
And so, would we want to give a recommendation for Caitlin to finish up? No, I guess, no. Would we want to give a recommendation that I can meet with Mark and finish this up?
Why wouldn't we want to take them involved?
She's going to be gone again.
She's out of town. All right. Okay.
Doing great.
Well, I'm happy to work with either one of you.
So, a question I have, and as I'm reading this, I'm realizing that we kind of did half. The intention was not to have a dollar amount in here and to discuss it, but there is a dollar amount in here. It was in there twice and you got rid of one. So you have it typed out as 10,000 parentheses blank dollars. So since you saw that number and didn't comment on that, is that within the range of acceptability given the basically the two tasks that are in this contract?
It would be preferable if that was a higher number. Our initial request, you might have saw our number was 30,000. So
But you're currently chartered with agreements with the city and the county, each at 20,000, which have much broader scopes of work. So it wouldn't seem appropriate that we would be paying more for a much smaller scope of work.
Certainly. Well, we would, I think that the original question there is about what amount would be acceptable, would this be acceptable? We would be willing to work with the DDA at a scalable amount for whatever it is that you feel is appropriate. So if you feel that 10 is appropriate, then we'll work with that. But I think there's a range of services that we could work on together that would show more value than that. I certainly feel that some of the projects that I've been focusing on in my first 6 months are primarily in the downtown area. So it seems that the millions of dollars investment going into that would have a significant impact for the DDA in the area. So it's relative. So Listen, this is our first agreement. I hope that there's many more. So if 10K is the amount, we'll work with you on that, and then we'll negotiate as you see value in the agreement.
Yeah, I'm happy to sit down, kind of see about, just cost it out, and that's, in the one I'm looking at, I don't know which one you have, but I don't have that amount listed in there.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
and
The current one
I think this is
was
one that was in the board packet.
yeah,
so-
I was
Yeah.
feeling up to 15,000, so, you know, I know there's some differences in our opinions on what we can do, so we can talk about it, and let's maybe do a high-level costing when we sit down and chat. And that way we
Something I
can-
want to add, is you referred back to your original number, but in that version, there was a larger scope of work too, because it included housing components, and you requested those not to be included
Right.
in this. So part of our committee level discussion on this is we probably are going to need to contract with some other person or entity to work on those housing initiatives. So we're trying to look at our total budget and how we would divide it up. So that's a piece of this.
Yeah.
And I know there are discussions going on right now in the broader community about possibly pooling together funds to hire someone on housing. And we think that that would be a likely entity or person for us to then contract with for some of those specific DDA housing issues, so.
Sure.
Just two comments for Karen as you move forward. Is this just a one-year agreement, or I would suggest we do a multiple-year agreement, because most other ones that the chamber's involved in is a 3-year commitment. That would be my preference, that they have some stability.
Thought we talked about it's a 3-year with annual review, and, or is it one?
We had talked about 1 year, partly to establish that relationship, and then see maybe in year 2, it is a bigger number. Because this is fairly narrowed down to 2 tasks.
There's a way you can write a contract is do a 3-year contract with yearly fiscal negotiations. So that doesn't tie you to
Right,
an
but if the
amount.
scope of work were to change in year 2, then that doesn't really make sense.
And hopefully it would at some level. In other words, you know, if some of the development occurs, that would change possibly our needs.
Again,
Significant.
personal preference is a multi-year contract, 3 years. That's what pretty much everybody else is doing that's involved with the chamber. And it gives, you know, I guess it shows more of a buy-in from the DDA's perspective than just a year and we'll see how it goes.
I agree with that. I'd like to see something more in a 2 to 3 year range. I think it's just a broader scope. It's hard to, these types of things are hard to work on in only 1 year
Right.
increments.
And you can look, you know, there are examples of language out there that, you know, can be terminated with, you know, X number of days written notice.
Yeah, I think I
Well,
put
that's
that
already
in.
Put that in there?
That's already in here.
Yeah, so I mean, that's an easy out for a 3. And I would suggest 15 or more, only because just give consideration to what they're already involved in our DDA district, because they're spending a tremendous amount of time in the DDA district.
Right, but the DDA is also within the city,
Yeah.
and within the county,
And
so
also
we're
within
not
the
paying exclusively for those services.
I just said keep it in your mind of what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I don't look at this so much as the specifics. I think there has to be somewhat of an outline for guidance, but I see it more as a buy-in to an idea and a relationship, and, you know, all of us going together on something and moving some things forward. And these are things that are important to us as a DDA, and it's not that the other things that the chamber is working on aren't important. I want to support it as a whole and have it be a fair number. I appreciate the work that's gone into this. I'm looking at it more broad and not so focused.
Sounds good. I will take all that, and then I will be doing more with Mark.
Don't worry.
I think Karen came here thinking she was going to release 2
I know.
projects. And she was gonna-
It's ideas, how is this was gonna come about, but.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Mark.
And again, it was a team effort, there were a lot of people around the table on these.
Anything else on Chamber Economic Development Agreement? Okay. Board member comments?
I just wanted to again remind everyone the time crunch we're in getting this development plan and service agreement done and, to the city council in a timely fashion. What I intend to do is at the next city council meeting, which will be the 7th, I'm going to ask for their authorization to schedule a public hearing for the first meeting in February, because we have to give notice 20 days in advance. So our drop dead date is the 18th of January. So Caitlin and I and another group went through that and laid that out. So just remember, we just got to keep moving, and it might require some special meetings to get approval for the services agreement and whatever we need to. But my intent is to ask for that at the 7th meeting, and then also provide the council with our already approved development plan and where we are with our services agreement, just to give them a scope of it. They don't have to approve it at that time. I would imagine that they would approve it no later than the first meeting in February.
Do you think that we should give them the working documents, the agreements that we?
It wouldn't, in my mind, it wouldn't hurt, and I can just let them know this is certainly solid, but this is the concept that
Right.
we're working. Just provides them a little more assurances that we're not totally spinning on the
Okay.
Essentially draft documents, right?
Yep, so if somebody can give me the latest and greatest, because I've got about 12 different copies going around. So Caitlin, if you can give me whatever the latest and greatest is,
Of the agreements?
of the services agreement.
I can send it over.
Services agreement and the proposed agreement with the, or with the chamber.
Yeah.
I received an email that was addressed to me, Valerie, Barry, and Caitlin on the 27th, which was Thursday, from Rachel, dear DDA executive team, this is my notice, I'm resigning from the DDA board effective immediately. And it goes on with some reasons. She's essentially moving. So I just wanted to have a brief discussion about, obviously I assumed that role, but what's the process in terms of board appointments or?
What we'll do is I'll have the clerk advertise that position again, and then we'll accept applications, and then I'll review them and make an appointment.
Do we need to vote on a new chairperson?
I would recommend we would have that on the agenda for our next regular meeting.
In January,
Yeah.
okay.
Not that we don't have enough other stuff on the agenda, but
Can you add that? too?
Yes.
Okay.
I reviewed our bylaws this morning before the meeting, and
Thanks.
they just kind of say that we fill that position.
Yeah.
Okay.
Doesn't give a timeline, doesn't give a process, so.
But I agree sooner the better.
Yeah. Okay.
Next meeting.
Thanks for that clarification. Any other board member comments? Public comment? Jeff?
Good morning.
Morning.
We're on the edge of some great things, obviously. The one thing that I did hear today that I would like to speak to, and that is the cooperation that's been ongoing over the last year plus. And that is from an aspect of trying to manage everything. Barry, as you said, about the scope of work. The one thing, two things for Mark with his time. The one thing that I've asked, and Thad and I have discussed this, Mark is putting out a update, and he gets that out to council. I forward that on to the county commission to give them updates. So again, it's about getting things done as opposed to reporting constantly. We don't want to get caught up in the minutia of addressing boards continuously. That does not move the ball forward for anyone. I think we have to do a good job, and I think we're getting there in the communication to our board members, our funding. and then an annual review of what's going on. And obviously, the communication is ongoing. It's not something that just happens once a year. We meet each other throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the months, throughout the year. And we all get updated in regard to that. The other thing of it is when it comes to the specific boundaries, the amount of work that's been done in the DDA in the last 2 years has been enormous without any contract. As anyone would say, as the city goes, so goes the county, you know, and we all look at the greater Manistee Lake area. If that's healthy, the rest of the county is going to be healthy. We don't want to lose sight of that. We all have boundaries that we have jurisdiction on, but yet they overlap. So with that, thank you for your time.
Appreciate that. Thanks, John. Anybody else? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay.
All right.